This is part 2 of the interview that I had with Mr. Ken Williams, the founder of Online Systems, which would eventually become Sierra Online. If you haven't checked out the first part, the link will be down below. Let's continue our conversation with one of the pioneers and facilitators of our favorite childhood memories, Mr. Ken Williams. They are, and people are making tons of fan games. I don't know if you ever sit down and you just, you're like, I wonder what's going on with this franchise, and you type in... And you're like, oh, cool, the Odd Gentlemen have made a very interesting, great version of King's Quest, taking in all of these other parts. There's tons of Space Quest fan games out there. King's Quest, or Space Quest 2.5, all of these things that bridge the continuity gaps that, back then Mark probably didn't even think about, and they can create their own little games about it. All of these people coming together to do their own unique voice acting to provide voice acting to the games that didn't have them. It's so cool to see just how much of an impact Sierra, especially during that time, has on people. And one thing I can say thank you for is that everybody at Sierra was known. They were known. Al, Mark, Scott, Guy Whitmore, Mark Siebert, Jane Jensen, Aubrey Hodges, Bill Davis, Josh Mandel, Lorelei Shannon. There's not many companies in video game history where we don't know more than just one person. When we think of Nintendo, we think of, Satoru Iwata or, Shigeru Miyamoto. When we think of id Software, we think of John Romero and Adrian Carmack and, Tom Hall, all of those guys. But consistently, I feel like you were so proud of everybody that you had at Sierra, and everybody knew, and we knew who they were, and their faces were on the back of almost every single game, especially Al. Al would love putting his little headshot on Torrens Passage, which is one of my favorite games that I think he ever worked on. That and then a Police Quest. I actually have something here. I went to the game store. I got this for...
what you got?
Got the collection series for Police Quest.
Police Quest. Great.
And these compilations, they're so good. So good. And I wanted to talk about Police
Quest. That came out after my time. Or no, that was during my time. Yeah.
We got Mr. Daryl Gates on the back. The father of SWAT.
Is it? Yeah, it does. I see him.
So 1997. Way back when, this compilation of these games. Yeah. This cost me like $50. I could get all of these on GOG Galaxy for like 20. But this is such a nice piece of history to have because it's...
Yeah.
This is my first.
Yeah, no, it's nice. On eBay, you can go and find those old games sometimes. And,
it's still full price too, almost.
Some of them are getting real expensive. I was surprised in that I always kind of thought of eBay as, rather than me trying to collect all these games, I know I can always get one if I want by going to eBay. But I went to get an old King's Quest 1 or something the other day, and it was a crazy price, like $300 or $400, and the old soft porns are going for like $2,500.
You should have messaged me like, look, I created this. Cut me some slack.
Crazy. But, oh well.
All right, so late era Sierra, or no, we'll talk about Police Quest real quick. So Police Quest to me is one of the more interesting series because we saw a very significant shift in how it was presented right after Police Quest 3. So we have Mr. Jim Walls who comes in and he helps as a designer and a writer for Police Quest 1, 2, and 3. And he provides that immersiveness of a police officer, the story of a police officer, Sonny Bonds, or Sonny Liston, whatever his name is. I think it's Sonny Bonds. It's been a while since I played. And suddenly we have open season, and it's dramatically different. And then we have SWAT, which is dramatically different. So there's two things I wanted to ask. The first one, I don't expect you to answer because it might not be my business, but I've always wondered what the nature of Mr. Jim leaving Sierra, like what was that about? If it was...
Yeah, I haven't thought about that in a long time. There was, our CFO wanted to spin off and start his own company. And, good people want to be leaders, and I tried to always, one of my philosophies was to try to hire people smarter than myself. And the really good people want to be upward mobile. And our CFO, Ed Heinbachel, wanted to form a company. And I was a little pissed because it's a small town. He was going to form it in our town and recruit a bunch of my people over. So on one hand, I respected him and thought he was doing exactly what he should do. But on the other hand, it was a pain in the tail to have somebody hiring our people away from us in our own town. And Jim went over with, I think it was called Tsunami with Ed Heinbachel. and was going to do a game for them. And I don't know if any game ever actually got released.
I don't believe it did. I want to say Iceman was the last one. I know he was trying to kickstart some continuation of what he interpreted as Police Quest, but I don't think it ever came to fruition. I don't even think it really funded well, which is a shame.
No. I mean, some of it was that he was going over to Tsunami, plus I got Daryl Gates involved, and as big a name as Jim was, Daryl Gates was bigger. And so, putting money into a game, you want to go with what you think's going to sell best. And
that probably answers my second question, because I wanted to ask, the reason why it changed obviously was probably the person who was providing the insight on the policies, right? And obviously police policies, CHP policies versus SWAT policies are two very different things, two very different worlds. But I was curious if that change also was just because kids were more interested. They thought it was cooler to be in SWAT at the time. Like from a marketing perspective, was it cooler to be involved with SWAT, or was like the late 80s police officer thing kind of played out and we're going to move on to something edgier, cooler, more appealing to the younger audience?
I don't know. I'm not real sure. I know that I was interested in getting more into simulation than storytelling. We had all of our kind of our eggs in one basket with storytelling adventure games. And I was highly focused on how to move the revenue into recurring revenue. At that time, the business model that people use today with kind of upsells and free games with constantly selling them things didn't exist yet. But there were games like our NASCAR game, our Hoyle game, where you could sell them year after year after year with modest upgrades. And with SWAT, I remember I was trying to do that. I was trying to create a police simulator, and Gates is the founder of SWAT. I thought could do that. And we could create kind of a cop simulator that could live forever, and we could keep adding to it. And it didn't turn out quite that way, but that's where I was trying to steer when I went with the SWAT series.
It did turn out relatively different, because game one was it was your point and click with police procedure. 2 was a tactics game, was kind of far out there, and then I guess we transitioned more into like the post Compycard world where it's a first person shooter. That I don't really tend to mess with them now.
Yeah, it was a little bit messy in that Gates was a controversial character, and some of the people on the team loved him and wanted to work with him, and some of the people didn't. And there was also, I guess, internal dispute over what should the game be. And so I kind of followed his, and Tammy Dargan was the leader on the project, and kind of followed their lead to go the direction they wanted to take it. I always kind of saw my job as to define the niche we wanted to go after and who the target buyer was. But then I thought of myself as more like a book publisher. I always used to do all these metaphors to the book industry. And I would say, if you look at movies, TV, books, whatever, there's a huge market for true crime and for crime type books. And I would try to step aside, and I believed in kind of, authors produce creative content. And the best thing you can do is pick a great author and get out of their way and let them do what they do. So, I wanted Gates to do what his vision was. And he was, and it came out, it worked. I mean, people liked the games. So I was happy. I think we did it right. So, but I didn't want to backseat design the games for people. That just wasn't my style. I like the idea of having authors. I would tell people, we'll fund you for one game, and if it wins, then you're a game designer. We'll do more, and if not, then that was it. And which, it's like a book author. I mean, that first book's got to click, and that would get them waking up in the morning knowing their career as a game designer was focused on how this product's going to sell, and they had, they did it, and it worked. So I wanted people to say, I want the next game from Jim Walls. I want the next game from Roberta Williams. So I want the next game from Lori and Corey. And I wanted the game to feel like their personality. So
That's a great way to look at it too. It's their babies.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had, there wasn't an internet in those days. Our primary marketing vehicle was our magazine, and we used, we published a lot of magazines. I don't remember how many, 300,000 copies per issue or something like that we would mail to people, and they cost us a fortune to produce. But it was important to us that people relate to our designers and feel like they knew them. So, and it was a pretty thick book that we'd send out, and I don't know what they cost. They had to cost us $3 or $4 a copy, and different than, you can throw anything on a web page in today's world. So, but we also, everything used to say part of the Sierra family, and we really meant that. Once somebody was in the Sierra family, a customer, an employee, whatever, we took good care of them. And, we knew that if we treat them right, they'll come back and buy another game. And if we don't, they won't. So it was really critical to us that we give people good product.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Phantasmagoria. That was a good product. That was an expensive product.
That was great.
Would you say that was your highest budget for any video game that y'all ran with?
Highest budget. It was pretty, today it sounds like a small number, but it was budgeted around $6 million, which was a ton of money in those days. And nothing was easy. That's what's funny is we could probably do that same game for a heck of a lot less today, but there was no, there were no normal computers that could handle rendering the graphics, even rendering static frames. So we had these $30,000 systems for creating the graphics. And it's just and we had to build a whole studio to shoot in, and we had to bring in all the blue screen equipment, and we did kind of bomb the audio. When I play Phantasmagoria today and I listen to the quality of the audio, I know that we could have done better.
No, I think it's fine. It's fine.
But it is good. Yeah, in fact, Roberta and I were just talking about if we were going to do something, it would be fun to do another fun Phantasmagoria style product. And I've been messing around with my iPhone. Will shoot the 3D spatial videos. And you can see the headset, the Vision Pro back here, and I've been playing with it. And I've been thinking about what I could do with it, and trying to do a Phantasmagoria 3. But I don't own the rights to Phantasmagoria, so I can't do anything anyhow.
Well, that reminds me. So that was actually the first time I think I ever interfaced with you on Twitter. I don't know if you remember. It was many months ago, possibly years ago, when I happened to find you on Twitter, and I was like, Mr. Williams, is there ever a chance that you would consider making a Phantasmagoria 3? Because I think at the time I had just beaten Puzzle of Flesh on my Twitch stream, and I was impressed because both of those games seemed like their own individual episodes of the Twilight Zone. These own story universes that were confined, and they were emotionally charged, and they made us feel a certain way. And the ending of Phantasmagoria alone is one of the most magical things I've seen in any horror game from that era, period. And I'm talking about Harvester, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, like all of these amazing games from that era. Phantasmagoria hit it on the head. And
that's great.
Phantasmagoria 2, obviously much different, more modern recording style. And
Roberta was mad at me for not letting her do Phantasmagoria 2, but I needed King's Quest 7 or 8 or something, probably 8, and needed to pull her off to get rolling on it, and had Lorelei Shannon pick up for Phantasmagoria 2, and sold the company, which all kind of messed everything up around that time. But I do think that if we were going to do another game, and it's completely unclear if we'll ever do another game, that probably Phantasmagoria 3 would be on the list. And I kind of suspect if I called Microsoft and said please, that they'd be happy to work with me on it, but I'm not sure. So
might have to make your own franchise
right now,
again.
I'm not sure I want to work.
Yeah, right.
On Colossal Cave, I think we thought it was going to be a 9-month effort. In fact, when it started, it was going to be a 1-month effort. I was just messing around and doing something to kind of pass the time during COVID. And instead, it became 2 years of our lives. And if we were going to do another game, we would want it to be something that's another great leap forward in terms of technology. And so instead of 2 years, we might be signing up for 4 years. And I don't know. I don't need the money, and I'd rather be anchored off some beach somewhere, sipping a glass of wine or something, and relaxing in a hot tub would be more fun.
There, we'll make Phantasmagoria 3 about a sailor who's
there you
VR, VR sailor. Okay, so the final part of this, we got two more things. I'm gonna give you some YouTube videos. No, you're fine. I live for this. This is fine. I'm all right. Yeah. But unfortunately, we have to talk about probably one of the worst parts of that, and that is Compycard International. I think that's something you get asked quite often. Some of the other people I talked to considered it the biggest theft of something so beautiful in video game history.
Yep.
And it's covered relatively well in your memoir, Not All Fairy Tales Have Happy Endings, which I do suggest. It's on Amazon. If you want to go check that out, go buy it. It's not overly expensive, and it's a great memoir from Mr. Williams talking about an insider perspective of that chapter. And I'm sure every question I'm about to ask could be, is answered there. But what was the thought process? Was that a very difficult decision to make when Compycard came into play?
Well, I don't know. I mean, lots of answers to that. I was kind of burnt out personally, and it was becoming a grill. The company was getting bigger, and I had really good people, but my personality is to be compulsive about things. I remember telling a story of a guy named Michael Eisner, who was running Disney, who insisted that nothing would happen around the park without him approving it. And that even, the pendulums for their cruise ship or something would come into his office, the hanging lights, so that he could review those. And I was like that. I had a rule that no ad could go out, no documentation, no game, no nothing without me approving it first. And the company was getting so big that we were suddenly releasing, a couple hundred products a year. And how can I see everything, And I would suddenly start seeing letters going out with my signature on them that I'd never ever seen before. And it was all frustrating to me. And all I ever did was write on airplanes. And then one of our board members said, we'll buy the company. And in fact, the original pitch was that they were going to buy us and EA and Broderbund and Blizzard and stack it all together into one monster company. And that I could run the development for the Sierra end of it and unload all of the operational stuff, the marketing, the distribution, and just focus on product. And that we'd have this one company that would be so giant, we'd just own the industry forever. And that appealed, so the money end of it was nice, but really what excited me was the ability to focus on product and get out of all the other crap that I was bogged down with. So, but it didn't turn out that way. It turned out that, I still don't know. The guy that was on our board that ran a company called CUC was found guilty to be a fraudster and sent to jail for 10 years. And Roberta believes he was absolutely guilty and a total crook, and I just don't know. He had the same vision as Bezos years before Amazon with internet shopping taking over. And part of the appeal is he also wanted me to run the internet shopping for them. And he was a brilliant guy. Perhaps he was also a crook. I really never figured that one out. You can say he was convicted, but there's allegedly everybody's entitled to a jury of their peers. And I'm not sure that his jury was comprised of people that were CEOs that understood accounting. I think you take almost any rich guy and put him in front of any jury and they'll convict automatically because I don't know. There's always this assumption that if you succeed, somebody got cheated somewhere. I don't know. I guarantee that whatever his jury it wasn't a jury of his peers, and it wasn't people that understood GAAP accounting and whatever goes into a public company. So I don't know. All I know is that Sierra was part of the mess and got destroyed because of it. Because I talked in the book. I kind of blamed in the first draft of the book. Oh crap, I forget his name. Grenowitz, Dave Grenowitz, who came in to run the company, and but he was given orders from above, just get rid of all the product development, turn it into a cash cow with the products we had, and that works short term. But when you get rid of the flow of products, his vision, well, not even his vision, whoever owned the company at the time, their vision was to make it as profitable as possible and get it sold after CUC crashed and burned. I don't know. It's worth reading the book because it's a detailed story that is just ugly. I thought I created a company that would last forever and ever. I mean, I used to always say I wanted to build a company that my grandkids could know about. And I thought I had done that. I thought Sierra was big enough to be invincible, but I underestimated the ability of people to screw up a perfectly good company. So it was, there's another old saying, which is if you ever saw your company, get as far away as you can, as fast as you can, because you won't like what happens. And it was like that. It was like somebody else raising my kid, and they were torturing the poor kid, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was really frustrating. I mean, I offered to work for free, anything to try to save the company. And, people wouldn't listen. So it was sad. But yeah, I mean, as you said, it was just sad time.
There was a point in time when we saw that mountain and we heard that jingle that we knew we were in for a good spot. And nowadays it seems like, Vivendi or whoever owns it now. I think it was Havas at some point. It's probably Vivendi, Activision Blizzard, whoever owns them. They just slammed the Sierra logo. They don't make it. They don't give it any personality anymore.
No.
It's just there. It just pops up in the bottom left of a box, and you're like, okay, who's this company? And then you do your research.
They
and
even
like,
gave
whoa.
away the Sierra name. Like if you go to Sierra.com, it's now like a lumber company or something. It's not even a game company. I mean, they really botched it. So, well, and I think a lot of people hoped that Cygnus would be like the rebirth of Sierra and we'd grow a big company again. And, and the sad truth is that, it's, you got to really be wanting to do it. And at this point, the last thing I'd want to do is build up another big company. It's kind of nice to work on a product and be able to get in the trenches and make it a great product. And I would really be horrified if Cygnus ever became like Sierra, kind of a big monolith. Well, plus, I'm too old to do that.
Well, people forget that Sierra was much more than just a video game company. There was a point in time where you had at least like 8 different divisions, be it Sierra Effects. You were making, effectivity products, like, products
we
that
did
could, everything.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of came from me in that I wanted Sierra to last forever, and I knew we couldn't do it by having one little niche. Yeah, and I was always kind of focused on, I wanted to be a leader in education, so we acquired a company, Cocktail Vision, out of France that was #1 in Europe in education. Then we also acquired Brightstar that was in education. I wanted into the simulator market, so we did Papyrus, which had a wonderful NASCAR product. And what else do we do? Oh, and then Dynamics, because I wanted their flight simulators. And then SubLogic, the competitor to Microsoft Flight Simulator. In fact, the original version of Microsoft Flight Simulator with Bruce Artwick. And there was by the time we sold Sierra, there was a good broad base of products in lots of categories, and the company should have lived forever. It should have been #1 in the industry right now. But although, I guess like Valve, I mean, remember Gabe Newell worked for us in those days and did Half-Life, and they are indeed #1 in the industry. I mean, Valve's a profitable little company.
We'll never see Half-Life 3, but he made sure he got the first one.
Yeah. Well, didn't they do? I haven't followed them other than dealing with Valve on distributing our game. And they are the 800-pound gorilla in the space right now.
Oh, absolutely. Let's see, Cygnus Entertainment. So the one thing I wanted to pitch, and it's because we're going to YouTube comments now. We got about 5 questions from the community that I picked out at random to see if, let's see, got to scroll down. I post a lot of stuff for
anything
for the folks so that they can do something. One of my viewers mentioned, will we ever see any other legacy text adventures adapted? Stuff like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, stuff like Zork, all of these old Infocom. I don't know who owns Infocom's IPs. That might be an IP war in its own way. But is there a potential to see all of our favorite text adventures that never had any other, graphical upgrades created by Cygnus?
I don't think so, because we did the original adventure about as good as could be done, and it hasn't. I mean, it's done well. I would think of all the indie games released in the last year, we've got to be in the top 5% or something. But still, I mean, what we proved was that you could spend millions of dollars to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it was done more as an
homage.
I don't know, pay tribute to the game that gave us Sierra and gave Roberta and I the nice retirement that we've had. If I was going to build a game to try to make a ton of money, I'd have probably done something different. And I would think, as I think about future projects, even if I had the rights to Hitchhiker's Guide or something, although, if you had the license, you'd do something cool with it. In the case of this particular game, we wanted to recreate the game as close as we could to the original. We knew that there are millions and millions of fans of the game, and that if we didn't do Colossal Cave exactly the way it was done before, we even put in some of the bugs that were there in the original version because we knew that people would count on them being there. So I don't know. I guess, to make a long story short, I just don't think it's economically viable to remake some of those old games. I mean, Zork, maybe Hitchhiker's Guide.
I'd be so happy if you did Zork. I love Zork.
Yeah, no, I in fact, original version of Colossal Cave, I did with a text parser, and there's days when I think I wish I'd kind of kept that, because that was a cool feature of that game at that time. But we wanted with this game to kind of get it everywhere. From we've got it on 21 different platforms. Everything from the Switch to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PlayStation VR2. We're bringing it up on Vision Pro. It's on Android, it's on iOS, it's on everything. And we couldn't have done that if we were going to depend on a text parser. But if I were doing another game, I'd probably, if I wanted to lose money on another game, I'd probably target something like Hitchhiker's Guide. That would be cool. I always wanted to work with Douglas Adams, and came so close so many times. And, but, oh well.
I think we planted a seed. I'm hoping to see it. Who knows, maybe the next 10 years.
Yeah, if somebody wanted to do a remake, I'm sure they'd call us. Whether or not I'd answer the phone, I don't know. But it was fun. I mean, doing Colossal Cave was a fun project. Very proud of the game. It's amazing to play. I mean, but it's in a text game. There was a few paragraphs right at the end of Colossal Cave where they're talking about, at the end of the game sequence, I don't know if you ever got that far, but in the it talks about the stuff that happens at the end in one paragraph. And so I was just going to put up a piece of text on screen and get away with that at the end of Colossal Cave. But Roberta said, no, you gotta visualize it all, and there's got to be, I don't know, 6 months worth of effort into that final sequence of the game. So it's, we did it right and did it in detail, but at great cost. We were a fairly large team, 35 people for almost 2 years. That's a big team, and we're still working on it. And that we're trying to, the Android version's going out for beta test, hopefully today. Vision Pro is still a few weeks away. We're doing a special version for the Quest 3 headset that's still a few weeks away. So it's a project.
Well, that's
Yeah,
exciting.
don't
I'll make sure that we
more
put a link
games.
down below to not only the studio's website, but also to a few different platforms where you can buy it. I
No,
loved
thank you.
Colossal Cave. So a lot of people who watch my videos know that the gimmick that I do, my whole shtick, is that I check out the evolution of video gaming by playing them in the order of release. And I don't know if you ever read my review. I know that was one of probably 20 reviews that stood out. At least one of the programmers, don't remember his name, but he actually DM'd me saying thank you for not ripping us apart, because you could tell so many people were playing this as if it was the first version of this game ever. Like they had no clue that this was based on something so historically important. Adventure is the first adventure game. It's the first. It's the first of its kind in a medium that was very ambitious. So I went back and I played it, and like I said, I felt so enveloped by the words. You know, the designer had such a way of describing things, and he was very vivid. The alliteration, the assonance, everything that he did, he set up a setting where you felt you were in a claustrophobic environment, and you saw those goblins, the dwarves throwing the axes at you, and you got lost, and you had to make a map, and sometimes those tunnels didn't make sense. You were disoriented. So whenever I pulled up Colossal Cave and I heard the narrator say those initial words, I knew I was at home. I knew that this in many ways is going to be a one-to-one. We didn't need any bells and whistles. You know, we took away the text parser. You gave us a exceptionally streamlined user interface. I saw Zizzy or whatever the words written in goldenrod on the rock.
Yeah.
I was like, this is perfection. This is the most pure tribute you can do to the great-great-grandfather of an entire genre. It's truly a good game, and I do hope that y'all make, you know, more, that you do take a look at some of those other IPs. But I think at this point in your life, you've well earned the right to just sail around and do whatever you want, and you've done your gift to the to the generation.
Well, thank you. But yeah, no, I would not expect lots of text game remakes. But although I guess Myst, although I guess it's still hanging around.
Myst is still, those guys
game.
are doing Myst. I think they released Abduction and Firmament, and those are both really cool. And I think they're in VR. They redid the original Myst in VR, but they did some weird things with Unity that I couldn't get into.
No, our VR version is pretty good and going to get better. I'm doing experiments now with doing it as AR. I like on Vision Pro. I don't know if you've tried it. Like the dinosaur at the beginning where he comes out of the screen. I was trying to do some of the effects like that in Colossal Cave for the Vision Pro, and we'll see how it turns out. I mean, at this point, we're just experimenting, but always trying to find something new people haven't seen before. So.
Absolutely. Let's see. I'm going to pull up these last few questions, and we'll get you on your way. I'm a tangent speaker, if you haven't noticed by now. I don't know if you are as well. You start getting on that topic. Let's see. I always thought him and Roberta had the coolest lives. Live in the woods, make video games. That's what It's Been Better says. Tech Next Let's Go says, ask him what he thinks of his Apple Vision Pro since he's dabbled in VR.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's at $3,500. Obviously, it's a pretty niche market, and it's heavy. You know, it's heavier than the Quest 2 or the Quest 3. So it's an awesome view of the future, but highly impractical. Although when I bought my first Apple II, I remember paying $2,000 for it, and it did basically nothing. But that's how, you know, great stuff happens. Somebody develops something that targets a fairly small niche of people that are willing to go out on a limb and buy a new technology that has no practical purpose. And yeah, you see the videos of people that have the big floating screens and they're, you know, doing it 8 hours a day. And I think that's really impractical. I mean, I can't see anybody sitting at a desk wearing a headset 8 hours a day. It would be really heavy on your neck, but as when you're doing it, you start realizing um, what it's going to be like when this technology is $200 and is no more weight than a standard pair of glasses. Then suddenly it gets super exciting. So yeah, so we'll see.
Let's see. One of my good friends, this is one of my newer viewers. He says, "Dude, I'm just blown away that you got this amazing opportunity. The achievements and leaps and bounds he and his wife brought to gaming are staggering. Make sure to tell them that they are loved and appreciated and brought so much joy to me and so many others. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams."
Well, thank you. Yeah, no.
Let's see. In King's Quest 2, how do I find the needle in the haystack? That's what Bill Cook asked.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the reasons Roberta doesn't do a lot of interviews is because she knows people ask her questions about King's Quest. And she says, I haven't played those games in 30 years. How am I supposed to remember how to find a needle in a haystack? So, yeah, I have no idea. But the good news is you can Google virtually anything in virtually any game, and you'll have the answer in minutes. Now, we used to make a lot of money selling hint books, and we operated a 900 phone line and all kinds of stuff to give hints for these games. But these days, internet works. You can go get the answer to any question. And it is true. Roberta doesn't remember most of the puzzles in those games.
I wouldn't remember either. Once I beat him, it's like, okay, was the story impactful to me? Okay, I remember. If it isn't, it's like, okay, let's move on to the next thing. Let's see. The final question I'm going to ask you. Awesome, bro.
Okay.
Congrats. I personally want to ask, what motivated you through the toughest times?
Well, I mean, in the toughest times, like when the company failed.
It's a very gray area question. Life is tough. Yeah.
Yeah, survival. When things are tough, I mean, you just got to kind of hang in there. The wild one is when we're crossing an ocean or something, it's night and something breaks on the boat, and it really is survival time. I mean, you just got to kind of dig in. And I remember one run where we were headed from like Taiwan to Hong Kong, and had a hurricane coming at us. And not a hurricane, what do they call them in that
Typhoons,
part of the world? Whatever it is.
Cyclones.
Yeah, typhoon. And suddenly something broke, and I had to be in the engine room where it's 130 degrees, and I was puking over the side of the boat because of the heat. But it was the same when Sierra went through hard times. I mean, you just got to do what you got to do to survive and stay in there. I never wanted to ever have to lay another person off in my life. I mean, that was so traumatic for me that it was that being able to kind of keep the company alive and growing and healthy. So, I mean, what got me through it? What got me through it was I didn't have a choice. I mean, there's never really an opportunity to throw in the towel. Screwing up my own life has never really worried me because I always figure, I can work out of virtually any problem. But especially in Oakhurst, we were located up by Yosemite, and we were the only game in town for employees. I mean, if, for some reason you had to lay somebody off, they were toast. They had owned a house, and they would have to find a way to sell their house, which isn't easy in the boondocks, and then move to the city and look for work. So it was particularly tough. So, I mean, what got me through was just because I had no choice. So,
yeah,
I wish there was a better answer to that.
Well, it's a hard.
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
I
hard
can't
pill
say
to
I had
swallow,
this big grand vision to dominate the industry. I mean, that certainly was a factor, but no, survival was always what I focused on.
Absolutely. Do you ever watch speed runs? Because I know you mentioned that we have all these infinite resources. One of my favorite websites ever is the See Your Help pages, because what it does is it makes what would be like a 4-hour game turn into a 30-minute game, because it's literally, all right, go in one room, right? Get, in the case of like Leisure Suit Larry, Like, it's like this part, you need to gamble for like 20 minutes. You'll have enough money. Go upstairs, talk to the bouncer, do this. And it's written out in a way that your game turns into, something that's 4 hours and gets truncated down to like 30 minutes. And then you got speedrunners who are beating it in 5 minutes because of bugs that...
Our QA team on this game were speedrunners. I hired one. I said, this is pretty amazing. And he could work through the game, our entire game, in 20 minutes. And I mean, if I try to play it, it'd be 40 hours or something. It's I don't know how these guys do it. Plus, they're entertaining. I mean, because they'll talk and keep the audience engaged and play through in no time. So, I don't know. Yeah, speedrunners are incredible people. And it was awesome having on the team because they would push the limits, in every direction. Very cool. And I would recommend anybody putting together a QA team to QA a game, look for some good speedrunners and get them.
If you get a chance, go like I think it was Doom Eternal. They got the developers for there. They set them down in a room. They popped a microphone in front of them, and they let them watch the speed run. And they're like, you see the guy run forward 3 paces. He jumps up twice. Next thing you know, he's shooting into outer space over the entire map. And they're like, wait, who did that? And they're pointing fingers at each other. It's a really funny thing. But that's enough for me. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. This is great. You know where to find me. And thank you, everyone. And that's it.
Awesome.
See ya.
Take care. At the end of the interview, I was able to finally breathe. Before me was a kind gentleman who not only crafted the most positive aspects of my childhood, but the same person who created worlds at a time where those worlds were only read about in books. I never expected to be holding a candid conversation with Mr. Williams, and I'm eternally grateful to have had that opportunity. To many of us, Sierra managed to create our escape. When our homes were cold, the warmth of the computer monitor captivated us. When life was tough, we could escape to those worlds that so many people took the time to create. It made our lives a little bit easier to live. Ken and his wife Roberta are two of the most humble individuals in the video gaming industry, and I don't know if they'll ever understand the magnitude of their contribution to not only the video game industry, but also to who we are as people, as gamers. I can't speak for everyone, but it takes a special breed of person to be in such a thankless industry, and from the bottom of my heart, and for those who choose to stand with me, we salute you, Mr. Williams, for fine-tuning a genre and enabling not only us in our youth to enjoy your adventures, but for our children as well. There's something special about seeing the slight smile and the twinkle in a child's eye, and it's even more satisfying to know that that reaction was a direct reflection of me many years ago. If you don't mind, make sure you hit that thumbs up button because it does help visibility for the video, and as always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortify out.